So let's take a look at this invoice. More specifically, let's take a look at those time frames, those periods. It starts out, all of it starts out with the invoice date. So we're going to draw this out like a number line or timeline. From the invoice date, there is a period where you can get that cash discount. That is often just referred to as the discount period. Then after that period, well, it starts at the invoice date again, but extending beyond that period then is the credit period. The end of the credit period, of course, is when you must pay. And by I say must pay, I mean you must pay or you're going to get converted into an interest type of situation. The way this is listed on an invoice, of course the date is just listed as the date. So let's say I give you an invoice date of May 19th. In the terms of sale, you might see something that looks like this. 210, comma, net 30. The N stands for the word net. What this is saying is 2% discount in the first 10 days. This is saying the net price due in 30 days. So if I'm looking at this timeline up here, May 19th would be the beginning of this. That'd be at the very beginning. The discount period, 210, goes for 10 days. So if you pay within the first 10 days of the invoice date, you'll get that 2% discount. What day does that discount period end? May 29th. Very good. You get 2% discount if you pay between May 19th and May 29th. What date then does the credit period end? Net 30 means you have 30 days. Now all these dates go back to the invoice date. So that is 30 days from the invoice date to the end. What date is that credit or the credit period end?
49.
Well, May 49th, what would that be? Yeah, that's okay. Yep, 31 days in May. So this would be June 18th. Now, if you don't want to sit there and count days in your head, there is a tool in your book. It is on page 396 if you have the current edition. And what this is just a table of all the days of the year. And it has January listed in the first column, first, second, third. And of course, January, the days are just going to be 1, 2, 3 on up to, how many days in January? 31, right? Then February, there's a 32, 33, 34, on up. Now, for what we're doing in here, we're going to assume no leap year, unless the year indicates it. How do you know whether a year is a leap year, by the way? Every 4 years. But The year is a leap year if it's divisible by 4. It's like 2016, this was a leap year. What's that? Well, in the United States it's easy because leap year is always election year. So what we could have done to find these dates is in that table, you could look up May 19th. May 19th in that table is what day? Looks like 139. Does that look right? So day 139. So that means this is day 149. And 30 plus that, this would be day 169. Now I can use the table backwards. If I look up 149 in the table and I follow it, it is May 29th. If I look up 169 in the table and I follow it, it is June 18th. So if I give you terms of sale for an invoice that is dated June 24th, and my terms are 210 net 30. I want you to find the last day of the discount period and the last day of the credit period. So June 24th is what day? I believe that's 175. So our discount period is 10 days. That would be 185. Credit period 30 days, so 175 plus 30 is 205. So for dates, that gives us the discount period. Day 185 is July 4th. And this is July 24th. So if they pay between June 24th and July 4th, they get a 2% discount. So what if we are dated August 28th? We get terms of 115 net 30. Same type of thing. This is August 28th, the start of our timeline. This is going to be 15 days now in our discount period, and it's only a 1% discount. So if you look up August 28th, what day is that? $240. So then plus 15, this would be day 255. Plus 30, this would be day 270 over here. So the end of the discount period would be September 12th. The end of the credit period would be September 27th. So let's add a little more information to our invoice. Let's say our invoice is dated March 8th. The invoice amount, the net price, is $4,100. The terms, 210 net 60. Our question is, how much do you pay if paid on March 29th? So all you really need to know, first of all, is March 29th within the credit period, within the 60 days? Yes, so they're not going to get penalties at least. So the second question is it within the 10 days? No. We have March 8th here. The 10 days, this would be March 18th. So we've missed that. 60 days, we go to May, and that would be May 7th would be our 60 days if you use the date table. So we do not get the discount. So on March 29th, you would pay $4,100. That's right in here somewhere. Just the full amount of the invoice. How much would you pay if you paid on March 15th? Well, do we get a discount now on the 15th? Yes, we would. We get a discount here. How much? 2%. Now we're going to do the same thing with this cash discount as we did with our trade discount. 2% discount. That means we're going to do 1 minus 0.02, which is 0.98. So the invoiced price invoiced amount, that is the amount that we're going to get credit for. Times, this is what we call the complement. I didn't use that term with the trade discount, but it's the complement of our discount. So 1 minus the discount rate equals the amount that we are going to have to pay. So for this thing, it was $4,100 times 2% discount minus, or 1 minus the 2% is 98% or 0.98. Means we are going to pay $4,018. Does that look right? Perfect. Any questions? So let's say our date is December 23rd. Our invoice amount, $11,000. Terms, That would be read 210 net 15, or 210 115 net 30. What that means is there's a two-tiered cash discount. 2% is in the first 10 days. 1% is if they miss that one, they'll still get another 1% up to the end of the 15-day period. The net is still due in 30 days. So if we do our timeline, this starts on December 23rd. When does the 2% end? That'll be January 2nd. It's 10 days. The end of the 1% then is going to be when? January 7th. Good. The end of the credit period then will be January 22nd. Now, if I am using the table in the book, I would look up December 23rd, which is 357. And what I would have to do is, I would have to, since the 10 days is going to take me over 365, right? There's a lot of ways I can look at it. But I can do 357 plus 10 is 367 minus 365. That puts me at 2. That is January 2nd. I could do the same for this one. 357 plus 15 is 372 minus 365. Puts me at 7. That's January 7th. And so on. So we can add up, even though we're going over 365, just subtracting out a year to get our date. So the question here, how much would you pay if paid on January 5th? Where does January 5th fall in the timeline? Is it in the 2% discount? No. Is it in the 1% discount? Yes, it is. So it's falling right in here. So they are going to get a 1% discount. So the amount they're going to pay is going to be the $11,000 net amount times what? 0.99. Where'd that 0.99 come from? 1 minus the 1%, which will give us $10,890. Yes. Can't write tonight either, apparently. Still can't write. Then it would have been time to just scrap the night. You're right. Well, let's add the next step to this. The date is July 29th. The amount, $2,800. The terms, Q5 net 30. Seller prepays $200 in freight. What does that mean right there? Seller prepays $200 in freight. Well, it doesn't say FOB shipping point. But the fact that they're saying they prepay, that implies that the seller is going to get reimbursed. So the buyer is going to pay for the freight. So my question here is, how much is paid if paid on August 2nd? So do our timeline. This is July 29th. How many days is my discount period this time? $5 days for that 2% discount. So that's going to end on August 3rd. My 30 days is going to end on August 28th. We paid on August 2nd, which means we do get the 2% discount. How much do we owe? Is it just $2,800? No, we also owe the $200 in freight. Before I ask anything else, where does the 0.98 come from that I just wrote down? 2%. 100 minus 2 is 98%. It's a 0.98. Why did I put down 2,800? Don't we owe 3,000? You'd never get a discount on freight, ever. That's an actual expense. The seller paid $200. They're not giving us we're reimbursing them. We don't get discounts on reimbursements. Too bad. So, 2,800 times 0.98 is what, 2744? Does that look right? Taylor says yeah. Okay. And then we do have to add the $200 in freight. You get 2,944. But the key is you cannot put the freight in there until after you've taken the discount. You never get a discount on freight. Time to start taking a peek at some of those modifiers. The first modifier, probably the simplest modifier that we're going to look at, is ROG. That stands for receipt of goods. This is usually on larger items or items that are sent with a very, very slow shipping method. If you buy something from me and I give you 10 days to have a cash discount and 30 days to pay, I put that item on a truck and it takes 9 days to get to you. Are you going to be really happy about a one day to pay to get the discount? No, it might take you a couple days even to process it after you receive it, to even get up to the front office. If you're a big company, it can literally be a couple of days before the front office even knows it's there, before all the paperwork comes from shipping and receiving up through the chain of command. So when you have something that ships slow, they use ROG, or receipt of goods. The shipper will confirm to the seller when the item was dropped off. And usually there's someone that signs. Not only will they send back to the seller, the delivery was made on this date, they'll also say signed for by, Bill Johnson or whatever. So that when the company goes to pay for it, and they say, hey, because what will happen is when you're the buyer, you have to decide whether you get the cash discount or not, and you deduct that from the check before you send it. So you're going to send this amount with the cash discount, and that seller may come back to you and say, no, you didn't pay soon enough, or whatever. You owe us more, or whatever. There are companies out there that are notorious for that. They just deduct the cash discount and send the money no matter when they're paying, and they force the other company to argue with them. a lot of companies just take the money and run. They don't care. But so anyway, let's take a look at an example of this. So we have an invoice that is dated February 21st, 2017. So we know it's not a leap year. The amount, $3,300. The terms, 210 net 30 ROG. Seller prepays $300 in freight costs. Delivery confirmation. We received that it was delivered on March 2nd. How much is paid if paid on March 11th? So really the important factor here is the timeline. Normally the timeline starts on the invoice date here. Are we going to use February 21st? No. The modifier, all this modifier does is changes the effective invoice date. So we don't use February 21st. What do we use? March 2nd. So that means the end of our discount period is March 12th, 10 days. And then, of course, April 1st is the end of our 30 days for that credit period. Did we receive the discount? Yes. We paid on March 11. We get the discount. 2% discount. Again, remember, we do not get a discount on freight. So we start out with our $3,300 invoiced amount times what? 0.98, which is going to give us $3,234. And to that we add the $300 in freight. What do you think? That's pretty simple, right? Okay. Our next modifier, not as simple. EOM stands for end of month. This is one of those examples where being in a classroom setting, we're going to have to simplify stuff. Because in industry, EOM can be handled a lot of different ways. Not always just end of month. It could be end of period, end of week, end of quarter. End of quarter, not so much. But there are a lot of different ways. We're just going to call it a generic end of month. What we're doing is we're considering 1 month to be, not our business cycle, that's not the right term, but our billing cycle is 1 month. And what this usually is it's smaller companies. A larger company has an accounting and bookkeeping department. They can handle, when an item is shipped from your shipping and receiving, your shipping department, that invoice, at least the copy that is kept by the seller, that copy of the invoice goes from the shipping and receiving to the office for bookkeeping. And then that office sends a copy of the invoice to the buyer. And that invoice now a lot of times is sent electronically, but it's still, I mean, it gets to the buyer within a couple of days no matter how it's sent. And that way the buyer has it in front of them, they know the terms and whatever. That's a large company. That they got people working in that office full time, bookkeepers and accountants. Every day they grab those invoices, they print them up as bills to the customer, and they send it out to the customer. Smaller companies may not have the personnel to do that. So they can't gather up those invoices every day and send them out as bills to the customer. So a small company might gather them up every Friday and send them out. Or they might gather them up the last day of every month and send them out. Or it might be every 2 weeks and do it. We're going to, for the sake of this class, we're going to make the assumption that that happens at the end of each month. Now, the end of the month for one company might be different than another. I mean, our calendar month ends on the 30th or 31st, depending on the month, or 28th if it's February. For a business, their month might end on the 15th of every month. So again, for simplicity in this class, we're going to assume that the end of the month is the end of the calendar month. We're not going to assume any other business days. The reason I'm pointing this out is you could get into a business, and if you're keeping their books, they could end on, a lot of businesses do end on the 15th. It's easier to end in the middle of the month for a lot of reasons. So that's when their billing cycle ends. So they would collect up all those invoices on the 15th, print up all their bills, and send up all other bills. So what we're going to assume here is, again, it's done by the month, not by the week or 2 weeks or whatever. And the end of the month is the end of the calendar month. So this might be June 1st, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st. So what happens is all the bills, all the invoices for June get gathered up on July 1st, and they are sent out to the customers. So their effective invoice date, actually the last day of June. So their effective invoice date is the last day of June, the end of the month. All the bills for July get gathered up at the end of July and sent out to customers. And the same for August. All the invoices for August get gathered up and processed. Now there's two things. A smaller company, it might take a day or so to process all the bills, get them printed, and drop them off at the post office. If they want to make sure that they are mailed out either the last day of the month or the first day of the next month, they might have to start a couple of days before the end of the month. Also, some of these invoices might get thrown into a basket out in the shipping department, and maybe they don't go up to the office every day. It might take a day or two to get them up to the office. So there's going to be a lag. So the month of June often doesn't really fit the whole month of June. Often it is the very last few days of May, and then June up until the end, close to the end. So you can see what happens here is those last few days of June are going to end up going in with the July batch because they can't get them done. Now, some businesses, it's just a matter of chance of how long it takes to get from shipping up to the office and how many days it takes them to get those bills processed and sent out. For the sake of this class, we are going to use the magic day of the 26th. So we're saying is anything on or after the 26th goes into the next month. So what that means is if we have an invoice dated June 3rd, and in our terms, there's an EOM modifier. The effective invoice date is June 30th, the end of June. If it is dated June 26th, and in the terms there's an EOM modifier, the effective invoice date will be. Does that make it into the June batch? No, it is on or after the 26th. It goes into the July batch, so it'll be the last day of July, July 31st. What do you think? Not so bad? So let's take a look at a full invoice here. Our invoice date is September 21st. The amount is $8,300. Terms. There's still usually a discount period, 210, but there isn't a net 30. Usually just listed as 210 EOM. So there's no net 30, net 60, or whatever. It is assumed with EOM that it's a net 30. Because your net is usually the billing cycle, the billing period. You want that paid before the next billing period is over so that you take those 2 days to gather up all your invoices and send out your bills. You're also at the same time or about that same time are going to gather up all the checks that have been sent in and check off everybody's bills to make sure they've paid on time. So 210 EOM, $200 prepaid freight. So the question is, how much will they have to pay if paid on October 8th? So here again, normally this would begin on September 21st, but because of the EOM, this is going to begin on September 30th, the last day of September. Now it makes the rest of this really simple. When's the end of the credit period? Well, it's 210. It's October 10th. It's EOM, so that means your effective date is the last day of the month that it's in. It's in September, so it's the last day of September. So our discount period, 210, will always be on the 10th of the next month. And the end of our credit period is always going to be on the 30th of the next month. So October 30th. Now the question usually comes up, well, what if this is dated in January? It gets sent out January 31st. There is no February 30th. We're not going to address that issue because I acknowledge that it's a big issue, but every company handles it different. Some companies, it's the end of February. February 28th, you got to pay. Other companies, they'll give you that extra 2 days into March, but then it screws up their billing cycle if they're doing that. But you got to remember this 1 month time frame is just kind of an arbitrary time frame we're setting for the simplifying of the class too. So anyway, on October 8th, they do get a discount. So what are we going to do? Times 0.98, which is going to give us what? 81.34. Is that correct? Then what? Add the 200 of freight. $8,334. I'm gonna let you guys try one here. This invoice is dated June 27th. The amount, $12,000. The terms, 110 EOM. There was $600 of prepaid freight. How much would be paid if paid on August 6th? So give you some time to figure that out in your notes. So if we look at our dates, what is the date that this all begins on? Is it June 30th? Why July 31st? You got it. That is after the 26th. It does not get into the June batch. I know. Well, I had to do it. It's late at night. I got to amuse myself somehow. So that means our discount period goes to August 10th. The credit period would go to August 30th. So I guess the big question is, do they get the discount? Yes, they do. August 6th is a few days even before the end of the discount period. So how do we figure out their payment? $12,000 times 0.99. It's changed because it's only 1% now. That is going to be $11,880. And we're going to add $600 freight. So at end of month, I mean, it's a way of simplifying the whole bookkeeping process, but it can be a little tricky figuring out what your effective dates are. Let's go ahead and take our break right now. We're a few minutes early. We'll come back at 7:27 for the third hour class.